If you own real estate in Montgomery County, then this April Market Insight is just for you. I'm Melvin Yates, your neighborhood real estate broker with EXIT Flagship Realty. On this month's Real Estate Market Insight, we're bringing you nothing but facts. I'm going to share the 5 things about your neighborhood that are affecting your home's value this month. Plus, I've got the county and national data if you want the inside scoop on where things are headed. Hey, I really just want to get to 10,000 subscribers this year, so please don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue bringing you the latest and most accurate real estate data specific to your neighborhood. My office has over 160 awesome realtors serving clients like you in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, so we can definitely help you put a real estate game plan together. Now for the numbers. The average sales price in all of Montgomery County last month was $679,700. This is a 7.4% increase over the last 12 months and an 11.8% increase over the last 30 days. In Montgomery County, the total sales volume last month, all added up, was $667.4 million. Now that's up 54.2% over the prior month. The average time it took to find a buyer in Montgomery County was just 16 days. Even though we had 1,547 homes come to market for sale last month, we still only have about 2 weeks of total inventory in the entire county, which just isn't enough. I want my buyers out there to stay encouraged and work with only competent real estate professionals. And some of the best are right here in my office. Let us help you get the home you want. For my sellers, strongly consider putting a game plan together right now so that you can capitalize at the right time. Don't miss this boat, and don't wait until you think you're ready before you start planning. It's never too soon to plan. I want everyone to pay attention to the market. There were 1,341 home sellers who accepted a buyer's offer during the month, and they represented 87% of the 1,547 new listings that even came on the market for sale. In all of Montgomery County, there were 1,032 homes that ultimately did sell. Now that's up 41% over the prior month and down 6.4% over last year this time. The data speaks for itself. Buyers are looking for homes right here and right now in Montgomery County. So if you have a house and you're thinking about how to best benefit from this market, we should talk about a strategy. My agents have highly qualified families who want to buy right here and right now in your neighborhood, and they're willing to pay top dollar, I guarantee it. So if you're thinking about moving up, moving down, moving away, or just have a real estate question, let us help you put a real estate game plan together. Next, you'll want to watch the county and national data reports on the next video, but make sure you like and subscribe before you go and help me reach my 10K goal. Feel free to use the link to get an estimated value from our website, or just text me an address and I'll shoot over a free market analysis. As always, you can text, call, or email me anytime. Thank you for trusting me as your source for accurate local real estate information in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Everyone wants to know the impact of rising mortgage rates on the housing market, and I'll also give a bit of a spring market update. So let's start with the impact of rising mortgage rates on the housing market. A lot of my clients are seeing mortgage rates rising, and they're asking the question, are home prices going to fall? What's going to happen to my home's value? There are a lot of questions out there, and we're here to ease the uncertainty. So we've gone back and pulled together the historical data to show you what's happened historically when mortgage rates were rising, so you can see the data and the facts for yourself. Now this is a look at how mortgage rates have been rising this year. No surprise, right? Mortgage rates are on the rise. Now this is data from Freddie Mac, and it goes back to the very beginning of this year. What you can see over there on the left is that the mortgage rate started out at 3.11 for the average 30-year fixed at the beginning of the year, and they've been steadily climbing since then, up to 4.67, which is the latest data that we're looking at right now. Now you may be seeing something slightly higher, slightly lower. The data that Freddie Mac presents here is a look back at the previous week, so at the end of March. The average 30-year fixed at 4.67. A lot of people are asking why. So we're going to answer that, and I think the next quote will really help. Freddie Mac says, mortgage rates are likely to continue to move higher throughout the balance of 2022, although the pace at rate increases is likely to moderate. Much of the increase in rates in early 2022 is in anticipation of what will happen later this year, especially with the Federal Reserve interest rate policy. So what does this mean? Rates are projected to continue rising. That's what the experts are saying. That's what we've been sharing with you all along, but likely at a more moderate pace. And that's because the Fed has risen their rate, and mortgage rates tend to follow that. And that takes a little bit of the uncertainty out of the market. And some of these rate increases have been priced in because experts now know what is projected to happen. So as we look at the mortgage rates rising, we are expecting to see them continue to increase, but at a more moderate pace. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, the big question people are asking is, what's going to happen to home prices as mortgage rates rise? A lot of people think that when rates go up, prices go down. Well, I want to share with you today the data, the facts that we put together in this. So what you're looking at here is the impact of rising rates on home prices when mortgage rates rise by more than 1 percentage point. So this goes all the way back to October of 1993, almost 30 years, and it shows you that there was an average of about 8% home price appreciation as mortgage rates are rising by more than a percentage point. So overall, what we can see here is that rising rates have not had a negative impact on home prices. But I want to take this a step further, because I know a lot of people have more questions about what's going to happen if they want to sell their house. So look at this addition to the same data, and then add some home sales data for the same period of time. Now what we can see here is that was an average of a decrease of 11% in home sales as prices were rising. We know as rates rise, that tends to sometimes reduce buyer activity, and it prices some people out of the market. What we want to do is look at how things are affected overall. We can all agree that we have a fundamentally very different housing market than we had in some of these environments shown. So let's take a look at this for this first line. You see October 93 to December of 94. Mortgage rates increased by 2.38 to a final rate of 9.2%. Now I want to be super clear here that we're not looking at a 2.5% increase in mortgage rates right now. We're not projected to have that, and we're certainly not projected, according to the experts, to get up to 9.2% mortgage rates. So very, very different environment than what we're talking about. I want to segment that out so that we can look at the rising mortgage rate environment more similar to what we're seeing today, which is a 1 to 1.5 percentage point increase. So let's look at the same data, and what you can see overall is there's a little bit of orange, there's a little bit of black, meaning home sales as mortgage rates are rising in these environments, really negligible impact. So maybe down by 2%, maybe up by 2%. Roughly that 2% impact on sales as mortgage rates are rising in a similar environment. And of course the outlier is 2005, 2006, which was the lead up to the housing crisis, and home sales dropped by 14%. So what we can see here is that when you factor this data out, we start to see that rising mortgage rates don't have a huge impact on home sales. So why is that? One of the big things we have to look at is what's available for sale. We have to look at the inventory component, because today, what we are seeing is drastically low inventory. Inventory today is lower than it was in January of 2021, and keep in mind that that was historically low then. So very, very, very low inventory. It's a huge deficit. And when inventory is that low, we want to think about what's projected to happen going forward. Home prices are projected to continue rising because there just aren't enough homes for sale. We talk about supply and demand a lot in this environment, and that's what drives home price appreciation. So when we're thinking about home prices rising and home sales, we also are seeing plenty of buyers in the market. It's really a matter of buyers not being able to find a home to buy. There's not enough inventory. So when you see headlines about a softening in home sales at any point right now, it's not because of rising mortgage rates. It's because there aren't enough homes to buy. Buyers who want to buy aren't able to find houses as easily right now. So I want to layer in the inventory data because I think that really helps paint the picture of what's happening historically and where we're headed as well. So when we look at months inventory, and we only have it going back to 2003, 2004 for this series of data, but we had 5 months of inventory, 4.5 months, 4.8 months. We had a very, very, very different inventory level than what we have today. So when we think about these environments, when it looks like 2005, 2006, or 2012, 2013, where there was a little bit of negative impact on sales, inventory was very different. Home prices are projected to continue rising. Inventory is still very low, and that's the driver. And that's the driver that's going to propel us forward when we look at what could happen in the market and with home price appreciation. Now let's pause here for a moment and summarize with this data as mortgage rates rose by more than 1% and comparing a similar environment to where we are right now. Home prices continued to appreciate. There's a negligible impact on home sales outside of the housing bubble, of course. Back then, months of inventory was very, very different. Where we are today, based on months of inventory, prices are projected to continue to rise. Let's look at a few quotes from the experts. NAR is saying this: while higher short-term interest rates will push up mortgage rates, I expect some of the impact to be mitigated, eventually through lower inflation. Thus, I expect the 30-year fixed mortgage rate to continue to rise, although we aren't likely to see big jumps that occurred over the past few weeks. So what is this saying? It's saying inflation is driving this increase in mortgage rates. We expect it to continue to rise, but it won't be at as quite a rapid pace as what we've seen over the past few weeks. So that's what NAR is saying. Now let's look at what Freddie Mac is saying. History suggests that when rates rise, there is an initial bump in home prices, as many move quickly to buy a home before rates increase further. But after that period, home prices slow. Freddie Mac analysis shows that a 1% increase in mortgage rates result in home price appreciation that is 4 percentage points lower. For instance, a 1% increase in mortgage rates would change home price growth from 11% to 7%. So what Freddie Mac's saying? We certainly feel that home price appreciation will slow, mortgage rates will slow some of the frenzy, but we're not talking about depreciation. We're talking about a softening, a deceleration. And that will help slow some of the frenzy as we move forward in the housing market. Now this last one's a big takeaway from Freddie Mac. It says with rates rising and expected to rise through 2023, it makes sense to obtain a purchase or refinance a mortgage if you are in good standing. Now let's turn our attention to the spring market. First, Mike Simonson from Altos Research said it best. He said this: "We keep watching for it, but there are absolutely no signs of market slowdown anywhere in the data. If anything, we're seeing the market continuing to heat up. And we're in a very, very busy market and have been for one in the last couple of years, all through the time we were in COVID, all through last year, and certainly coming into this year. Many were saying, okay, maybe the market's starting to moderate, but we're seeing a very, very busy market right now. If we start to break that down by traffic maps, NAR just came out with the most recent buyer and seller traffic maps. So let's start here with the buyer traffic map. What you see here all over the country, with a few exceptions, strong traffic from buyers. You know, the rise in rates is not slowing down buyer traffic across the country. A few states, even where there's maybe stable buyer traffic. But as we head into the spring market, very, very strong buyer demand. And the rise in interest rates is not slowing buyers down across the country. You know, if we look at the other side of this coin, seller traffic, very, very weak to very weak seller traffic across the country. In the middle of the country, above Nebraska and Wyoming, it kind of looks like there's nothing there. But across the country, very, very few sellers. Anytime we're in this type of market and we have strong buyer demand, the lack of sellers keeps that upward pressure on prices. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But if there's any sort of good news relative to sellers and listings, is in March, active listings increased in this country for the first time in 6 months. If you go back to the fall of last year, around September, we started to kind of fall down in active listings, all those being consumed by the buyers in the market. And we're starting to see a tick up. Very little, but nonetheless an uptick. And the interesting thing is that if you look at where we were in March, 382,000 active listings in the country, according to Realtor.com. And go back to March of last year, about 471,000 active listings, which is about 90,000 active listings short this March as compared to last year. All of this is creating a bias towards the upside, meaning forecasters that are looking at the markets and saying, no, you know what, we thought it was going to be this amount of activity, but we see it being a little bit more. And I think it's articulated well here by Fortune. They say, now more industry insiders are throwing out their previous forecasts and replacing them with more bullish short-term looks. Indeed, some experts say the 2022 spring housing market might go down as one of the most competitive on record. Now let's go back and let's review this again. Strong buyer demand, weak seller traffic, all of this leading to a very, very competitive market. Now let's talk about what's been dominating news cycles, and it's the lack of pending home sales. This look gives you a good synopsis of pending home sales values over the last several months. Pending home sales have dropped again. All of that keeping upward pressure on prices. But if you look here, upward left-hand corner here, 100 as measured by NAR as a healthy level, pending home sales. We came in February at 104.9 pending home sales. So certainly seeing a healthy market, but down nonetheless because of the lack of active listings. Again, I think we can say that's because we don't have what we need. It's certainly not because there isn't demand in the market. Now, this is a look at showings as measured by showing time. The showings actually exceed where we were during the pandemic. You see here 2020 and 2021, we're ahead in showings and activity, those scheduling appointments to see homes, and we were well ahead before the pandemic and well ahead during the pandemic. So the lack of existing home sales is not because there's not demand in the market. There's very much a strong demand in the market. That's because of the lack of available homes. All this keeping that upward pressure on prices. Now this is the latest look from CoreLogic on price acceleration. Last year we said, okay, prices seem to have peaked if not plateaued. And what we're seeing through November, December, and January, numbers ratcheting up slightly in the amount of appreciation year over year. So a very, very competitive market. I think this also summed up by Craig Lazara from Case-Shiller report says, last fall we observed that home prices, although continuing to rise quite sharply, began to decelerate. Even that modest deceleration was on pause in January. The 19.2 year-over-year change in January in this fourth largest reading in the 35-year history. So CoreLogic on the previous slide, this is from Case-Shiller report, 19.2% appreciation. Those both in the neighborhood there, 19.1, 19.2, let's just call it a lot of appreciation. Well ahead of historical appreciation. And I'm going to talk just a minute about what experts are saying about the rest of the year. But no doubt this spring market is shaping up to be a very, very competitive market. My job here is to educate you on what's happening in the market. Because if you just read the news or just read some of the headlines, you might think things about the real estate market that just isn't backed by the facts. I have a few additional graphics to share before we close out. This first one looks at active listings and shows that new listings are now greater than active listings. This does a great job. This graphic here shows that active listings as compared to new listings going back to August of 2021. So let's break it down. The blue are active listings each month and the green are new listings that are going live during the month. As you see, all through the fall and coming into this year, active listings outpaced the new listings until March, where new listings actually outpaced the active listings. That shows a great picture of what's happening in real estate today. As soon as something comes on the market, it sells right away. The other slide, what I think does a great job of showing where the market is and displaying all the issues, are the single-family housing units completed. And this tells the story of why it's so hard to find a home right now, why prices have risen the way they've risen, and why the simple answer is right there in the green. For 14 straight years, we've been below the 50-year average in builds in this country, going all the way back to the 70s. Back in the 70s and 80s, there were more homes completed in this country than there have been in the past 14 years. All of that coming out of the fallout of the housing crisis in 08. Builders were hit extremely hard and having to build back slowly to bring new builds to market. But the lack of available homes coming to market has constricted supply. A lot of people want to buy, driving the price up, making it harder to find a home. The other issue that families ask us about a lot and is a big concern for a lot of consumers this spring is inflation. This is a graphic I've shown before. This is a home ownership as a hedge against inflation graphic. Remember that when you're in an inflationary economy, you want to be invested in hard assets that outperform inflation. And this is going back all the way to the 70s. The blue bar there being the inflation rate, the green bar being the home price rate. And you see most decades, home price appreciation has outperformed inflation. Maybe neck and neck in the 80s, a little bit more inflation in the 2000s than what we saw in home price appreciation, but we know there was something going on in the 2000s in the housing crisis. But for many of those decades, housing has well outperformed inflation. Something to keep in mind if you're concerned about inflation. Many people as well thinking, should I buy right now? Is this the top of the market? This graphic right here shows just what's at stake. In the Home Price Expectation Survey, the Home Price Expectation Survey is a survey of 100 economists, real estate professionals, market investor professionals that say, what do you think is going to happen in home prices between here and 2027? And this is the potential growth in household wealth over the next 5 years based solely on increased home equity if you purchase an average price home, about $360,000 home in January of this year. What do you stand to lose? Just over $96,000 in home equity, that's all. That's real money and price appreciation in the coming years. As you can see, experts are forecasting home price growth well into the next 5 years. If you're at a higher price point area, then it'll be greater. I'm showing a $360,000 example of a home purchase in this example. So if you're wondering, is this the top of the market? Will homes lose value? This is what experts are saying about home price appreciation. If you're waiting on the sideline right now, waiting for home prices to go down, this is a look at what the experts are saying. There are 7 experts here on the average home price appreciation being 6.7%. You see it in the green bar right there. There's literally no one right now forecasting prices to go down. On the low side, Zelman saying 3%, CoreLogic saying 9.6%, and you see everyone else in the middle there. But there's no doubt that this is a competitive spring market, and this is going to be a competitive year. We will see home price appreciation. I think the experts will raise their appreciation numbers as we go throughout the year, but no doubt we're going to see appreciation in homes this year, well above what we've seen in historical years. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this county and national real estate market insight. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to use the link to get an estimate of value from our website, or just text me an address and I'll shoot over a free market analysis. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk soon.